Go. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the special West Grey Council meeting for July 12, 2022. On item number 1, I am calling the meeting to order. We have all members of council present, with exception to Councillor Hergert. We have a quorum for this meeting. Corporate and Community Initiatives Officer Hewlett, could you please explain the electronic features of this meeting?
Thank you. Through you. Before I begin, if at any point you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the meeting ID for this meeting, which is 890-8841-8608. Both members of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically on camera to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance throughout the duration of the meeting, you can send a chat message to myself, Cody Hewlett, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, both being live streamed on YouTube as well as being held on the Zoom meeting platform. Public participation, if any, must be done through the Zoom meeting platform and cannot be done through YouTube at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that. Now over to Clerk Scharbeck. Council has received via the clerk some communication, a letter from the West Grey Police Services Board. Could you please read that into the record?
Did you want that right now, Mayor Robinson?
Yes, please.
Okay. This letter is dated July 11th, 2022 to West Grey Council. This is the letter that I did share by email, but this is the first opportunity to have it part of the public record. West Grey Council members, please be advised that the West Grey Police Services Board held a special meeting on Friday, July 8th, 2022, and during the course of business, the following motion was passed. That West Grey Police Services Board send their regrets to Council regarding the attendance at the July 12, 2022 special Council meeting and advise that the Board is willing to meet once Council has received training or meet with respect to the business plan only. And that motion was carried. The letter continues on May 5th, 2022, the West Grey Police Services Board, the Board, passed a similar motion, which was communicated to Council. And that motion is set out as follows. That the West Grey Police Services Board send correspondence indicating that they are willing to meet with Council as soon as possible following the Council training workshop provided by the Solicitor General's Office Representative, Dwayne Sprague. And that motion was carried by the Board. The letter continues, the Board notes that Council has not yet received this training. Training was requested by the Board to answer the many questions that Council has in relation to levels of service, amongst other topics. Training would explain the enabling legislation and clarify Council's role in relation to the role of the Board and the role of the police chief. Through this training, Council could attain a thorough understanding as to what is and is not in its purview through the responsible provincial ministry. Training will provide a common frame of reference and a mutual understanding of our respective roles and create a foundation for productive, respectful meetings. The Board remains committed to meeting with Council as soon as possible and would appreciate Council advising when training has occurred. In the interim, the Board is eager to receive Council's input on the business plan as referenced in the motion passed at the May 5th, 2022 Board meeting, which addressed such a meeting. And the motion is included as follows. That the West Grey Police Services Board send correspondence to Council advising that the West Grey Police Services Board would like to meet with Council as soon as possible to obtain their input for the West Grey Police Service business plan. And the letter concludes, the Board remains hopeful that a business plan meeting will occur as soon as possible. Yours truly, Christine Robinson, Chair, West Grey Police Services Board.
Thank you for reading that into the record. On item number 2, moment of reflection, if you would be so kind as to take a quiet pause at this time. Thank you. Item number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Members of council, is there anything to declare at this time? Seeing none, We are now on item number 4, council input to the police services business plan. 4.1, what is the most important policing related issue for your organization? That is a question. And 4.2, is there any other information you would like to share with the West Grey Police Services Board? So with that, how does council wish to deal with this? I'm looking on screen as well, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hutchinson. So I'm watching if your hand gets put up, your respective hands, that is. Councillor Shea.
I think we should perhaps take a moment and discuss the non-attendance of the police board. The meeting was intended to be a dialogue with the board, and the board seemed eager and willing to meet with us generally. And then the board somehow got the idea that they should set a condition on meeting, and the condition being that this council receives external training from a source of the board's choice. I think we should, I'm eager to have this discussion today to try and clear the way forward to having a more productive relationship with the board. I think we could discuss things like vocabulary that's not off-putting to our colleagues on the board. In terms of reference, understanding our scope and trying to ensure that we're not overstepping. So I think we can take this opportunity today to put together a sort of a positive message to send back to the board. But I do think we should include in that message that the board it's not really appropriate in my mind for the board to be demanding as a condition for meeting that council undertakes training. Imagine if the public works director said, before I prepare my annual budget, I want you to take training in roads maintenance. Or if the library said, before we review expanding the library facility, we want council to have training on library sciences or something like that. We are, pardon me, we are a collection at council of essentially amateurs. The whole principle of being able to run for council is that any citizen can run for council, stand forward, operate in good faith, use reasonable judgment, and be a productive part of the decision and dialogue. There is no requirement to have special training to be a councillor. You don't have to know about road maintenance. You don't have to know about public policy. You don't have to know about legislative affairs. Any citizen should be able to come in and take this job as councillor. We rely on staff to provide us with expertise, so we don't need to be experts. All we need to be is level-headed, responsible, open-minded, and collaborative. So this condition that the board has placed on us seems awkward, to say the least. And I think as part of the message that we send back, we should say, we are not going to operate under conditions like that. Ironically, before the board ever advised us or entreated us to undertake training, council had, of its own volition, asked to get some training and asked, I believe, the clerk to coordinate some training through, or the CAO, through whatever was the best means possible, not necessarily the Solicitor General's office, but whatever staff, the experts, could find to support us. So it's not that council is, or I shouldn't speak for council, it's not that I am against the idea of having training. In fact, I think I was the one maybe even who moved that we get training. But I think that's our decision if we want training. It's not an external board's decision to make for us. So all that said, I don't think it's very difficult to separate the discussion of the business plan from the discussion of what we have termed levels of service. And I'm nervous to use the word levels of service because I know that the board and the police service, the police force, doesn't think there is such a thing as levels of service. So I'm eager for us to find new vocabulary around this. But the business plan, to be asked our opinion about the business plan is to be asked our opinion about the force, the service, and its future for the next 3 years, at least. And to be asked what our vision for the police service is for the next 3 years is to be asked, what do we think we want to have as policing in West Grey for the next 3 years? That is the item, which is the next item on the agenda. So to me, these two agenda items are talking about the exact same thing. What does council see as important for policing in West Grey? And how do we get there? So I have further thoughts on this subject, naturally, but I just wanted to sort of lay down a little bit of foundation before we carry on. So thank you for the moment.
Thank you. So we're on item number 4. How does council wish to proceed? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to support Councillor Shea's comments, but the link between the two is, if you ask me what the most important policing issue is, it's service levels, levels of service, how you compare to adequate and effective. Use the words you like, but the chief has used that himself. If you go back to January 27th, he said the requirement is adequate and effective. We're well above that. So obviously there's a measure. Whatever that measure is, whatever the board wants to call it, that's my biggest concern. You know, I hear about our services responding to accidents or to events that are out of their jurisdiction. Multiple, vehicles show up. I don't know why they do that. I don't need to. The police do. They can explain it to us. That we can have those conversations. I don't know they're valid. I don't know they're not. But the point is, without being able to sit with those people who do the job, we have no way of being able to ascertain whether the cost we're paying is reasonable or not. And to not show up, I think, is delinquent in their responsibility to be partners with this council and with the municipality and the community. And to do anything else is an error. But you ask, what is the most significant policing issue? You've got it. But putting the topic on the table again is not productive. The discussion has to follow to be able to determine, so what do we do about it? How do we address that? And we have a partner, supposedly, collaborative partner, supposedly, that isn't willing to come to the table. It's as simple as that. And until that happens, there will be no progress. I don't see how it'll ever go forward unless they're willing to have that discussion. But you now know what I think is the most important policing topic. Or they've known that for months.
So what we'll do, I'd like to hear from any member of council that wishes to speak, but with regard to the 2 items, if we could have, if council will be so inclined to, we need a resolution because council speaks in terms of resolution and bylaws. So if council is so inclined, if there's information to put back to the West Grey Police Service with regard to item 4 and the 2 questions, 4.1 and 4.2, I'd be looking for council's consideration of a motion duly moved and seconded and voted. I'm just looking over on screen. Is there a member of council? Okay, Councillor Hutchinson, please go ahead.
Yeah, so it is a little disappointing that we aren't here sitting with the board having this discussion. But my first thoughts are I would love to have some input to the police service business plan, but I'm just wondering, is there such a thing as a draft, something to work from? Because right now we're sort of throwing things in out of the blue, whereas if we had a draft in front of us to say this is what the board has come up with based on their public surveys and so on, then it would be easier to add input, I think, and from my perspective anyways. And as far as the training aspect with the ministry, I'm all for training. There's no doubt about that. It's just we seem to be at a bit of a stalemate if we're waiting on this training, and meanwhile we can't go ahead with the business plan if we can't have input. And I guess that's what we're here today for, is to give input. But to me, it would be, I would love to have something in front of me that I could sort of work from in terms of direction. So thank you.
Just for clarity, for members of council, the correspondence identifies that the West Grey Police Services Board will meet with regard to the business plan. The training is not contingent on that meeting. Where the board was identifying the suggestion for training is in relation to the police service levels. Okay, anything further at this time, Councillor? No. Any other member of council wishes to speak at this time? Councillor Hamilton.
Excuse me. Thanks, Mayor Robinson. Yeah, I'm disappointed too that we're here and the board has chosen not to come today. It's been difficult to coordinate this meeting. The business plan's 1.5 years overdue, and council's here ready to participate, and the board, our community partner, the board chose not to come today. I also agree that this conversation council's wanting to have with our police partners about service levels, or whatever you want to call that, would naturally flow out from even the questions that are down here today about the business plan. So perhaps council just needs to reimagine that meeting, and it doesn't need to be a distinct meeting or a distinct question. It could organically flow from a discussion about the business plan, and that could help advance this conversation. I think council quite clearly understands its roles and responsibilities under the Municipal Act, and council does not direct the chief nor the board, nor is council directed by any other board. And I'm afraid that's how it's come across today from the motion of the police board. And so I think there's great opportunity for dialogue and information sharing between two governing boards without directing each other. We're just sharing information, concerns, and we can move forward together in a really positive way. And so I look forward. I don't see the benefit of us delving into the business plan today. As the board has indicated, they are willing to meet and eager to meet about the business plan. And unfortunately, we're looking at rescheduling this meeting, which I hope to do soon. But the summertime and the clock is ticking. I'm eager to have that meeting. Thank you, Mayor Robinson.
Thank you very much. Any other? I'm going to go first-time speakers first. Thank you very much. Is there any first-time speakers at this time? No. Over to you, Councillor Shea.
Thank you. And again, I'm not in any way speaking on behalf of the board, nor am I speaking on behalf of council, but I will share that I, like you, Mayor Robinson, were present at some of the other consultation meetings that the board conducted. And the nature of that exercise was that the board reached out to a number of what I believe we termed stakeholders, school boards, school principals, community groups, business groups throughout West Grey, and asked them these two questions. There were Zoom meetings. So we had the meetings. Typically, there would be one person on the other end. I think when we did the hospital, there were two people on the other end. We would ask the question, and they would answer, sometimes effusively, and very often very favorably. And then we would say thank you, and we would ask the next question. They would answer, and we would say thank you, and that was more or less the sum of the interview, data gathering. So it's kind of like when we get delegations at council, or citizens coming and speaking at the beginning of a council meeting during comments. They say what they're going to say, and then we say thank you for coming. We're not going to engage in dialogue. We're not going to engage in debate at this moment, at this council meeting. We're going to take what you said, reflect on it, possibly take action at a future moment. So I just want to, if we are going to have a business plan related meeting with the board, I think it will be probably a one-way sharing of information, where the board will be saying to council, what is your view of policing? Note, thank you very much. What would you like to see done differently? Note, thank you very much. But I think, Doug, that you had a great comment that if there was a draft business plan that we could see and respond to, that would be an infinitely more productive dialogue. Then we could be saying, oh, we see that you're saying, the public's view on youth crime is the biggest concern in the community, and that the police have developed this strategy for trying to minimize or reduce youth crime. That's really interesting information. Yes, we can agree that if that's a public perception, that perception needs to be addressed. But I think you, Doug, like me, are craving meaningful dialogue rather than just a one-way flow of information. So that's why I think keeping these two topics together is going to be the best way forward, because what we're saying is we're not just a stakeholder. We're not like the school board. We're not like the Lions Club. We are an actual partner in policing. And we should be having more flow back and forth that is organic, natural, and confidence inspiring. And yet we seem to have sort of, over the course of this term of council, we seem to have grown somewhat distant from each other. So I think we should try to continue to keep the goal of having a meaningful face-to-face, two-way conversation. We should try to keep that the goal of this eventual meeting that I hope we will have sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members of council, how do you wish to proceed? And I'd be looking perhaps for a motion. Councillor Hutchinson.
So just to further what Councillor Shea had said there, and what I'd said before, like as far as a draft business plan, I think somewhere along the line, someone even said that for a police department to create a business plan is not a typical thing. So maybe would it be possible to ask the board to, when we have this meeting, to, in particular, maybe the police chief, just to come up, give us some data, the service, I'm not referring to a service level, but just the data of what they do every day in and day out and over the course of a year, number of calls, number of issues that they deal with. And then we have some hard data in front of us to look at, I think, in terms of, where are the hotspots? Where do we need to go? What's the future look like for our policing and so on? So I'm just looking for, I really need to have something concrete in front of me to be able to maybe generate some ideas. So I don't know if that's a possibility for our next meeting, but we do get reports from the police chief periodically. So maybe it's an opportunity to review some of those stats for our own information. Thank you.
Okay, members of council, how do you wish to proceed? Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I just have a comment and then one question. I think some of the services that we talked about, I'm positive that the past chair had came and did a presentation to council and listed a variety of services that the police provide in this community. So I think I've got some of that information here. I guess my question, that's more of a statement, but my question is, I was under the understanding that a subcommittee possibly at the police board had been working on a business plan. So we must have something that we can start with. May I ask that question? Did that ever come to fruition, or did that not take place? Thank you.
So we started out with a subcommittee. It's now with the board, and there is information we're collecting. The board is collecting data. We're looking for input from the West Grey Council at this time. So I'm just asking council how they wish to proceed here.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I could follow up, please.
Please follow up.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I'm kind of listening and hearing here is I think what council is, I've heard a couple of them, is maybe for some or this part of what's completed so far to come forward, so we've got something to start on, I think is that's what I'm hearing would be a good starting point. I think that's what Councillor Hutchinson was referencing. And if that's, like, I can support that, because then we've got something to start on from a council's view. Yes, the training, I understand that, but I think that's what they're trying to say. There is some form of rough draft business plan that was started with the subcommittee, which is now with the police board itself. And if that could be presented, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for everyone's input. How does council wish to proceed? And if there's a motion at this time, I would look to entertain that. How does council wish to proceed? Councillor Hutchinson.
So, yeah, I'll make a motion. So my motion would be that the West Grey Council looks forward to a meeting in the near future regarding police services, and with an opportunity to or an opportunity with input from a draft business plan, if there is such a thing, and some data regarding present police services. I'm not sure if that's correct wording, but just some data, maybe a presentation by the police chief with some information that we can look at and evaluate.
Thank you. I will take that and ask Clerk Scharbeck to wordsmith that and probably have inquiries of Councillor Hutchinson with regard to the wording. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Councillor Hutchinson, I'll just clarify the wording and the intention that West Grey Council looks forward to a meeting in the near future regarding police services with an opportunity. You mentioned providing input, but I wonder if you mean to review the draft business plan and provide input. Was that your intention, or just
Yes,
provide input?
No, I think that sounds fine. You said to review and provide input.
Okay. To review and provide input into the draft business plan.
Right.
And did you mean receive some data regarding present police services?
Yeah, some way of wording that. Yes, that's sort of my intent.
And receive perhaps information regarding present police services?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if it's council's wish to put anything definitive in there or reach out to the board for another meeting date. There is still the issue of training that this sounds like it may be continuing a circle. Just asking for clarity for this motion.
If I might, I think with regard to the business plan, the board wasn't looking for specifically for in the motion for training. So the dialogue for the business plan, I think, is, I mean, if you look at the correspondence and the motions that the board had put forward, the training was linked to the second part of that, but not the business plan. And that's, I'm just relating it to the correspondence. Are you able to read back the motion at this time?
Yes. By Councillor Hutchinson, that West Grey Council looks forward to a meeting in the near future regarding police services with an opportunity to review and provide input into the draft business plan and receive information regarding present police services.
Councillor Hutchinson, are you fine with the language of the motion?
I think I'm fine unless anyone has a particular problem with it.
Well, now I'm looking for a seconder for the motion. Councillor Townsend, seconding. So any questions with regard to the motion? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Well, I think it's a nice open motion. I mean, it provides space for discussion outside and a part of the two questions that were provided by the Police Services Board. And I was reflecting on Councillor Shea's explanation of how you've engaged with other stakeholders and how it's been more of a listening process from the board. This is a special council meeting that we are hosting, the police board. So could we not have the framework and shape that dialogue so it does become a back and forth? It's our special council meeting that we're inviting them to. So I think that's another way to reframe and think about this process. We can set the process. Perhaps we need to consider having a third party, not mediator's not the right word, but just another person help facilitate the dialogue between the two boards. That's another thought too. But my long story is I think this is open enough, Councillor Hutchinson, that it achieves what I've heard today. So thanks for bringing that forward.
We do have the motion moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Is there any further clarity on the motion? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to point out we are exactly 5 months and 1 week from when we originally asked to meet with the board. And I would really, really suggest strongly that the representatives sitting here that are on that board make that clear, that it's very frustrating when you have barriers put in front of you and you're trying to work with another party and they're trying to tell us how we have to behave when they don't have the authority to do so. And we're asking for a conversation, i.e. dialogue. I think that needs to be stressed very strongly. I'm not suggesting it go in the motion, but I am suggesting that that message should go back and say this must move forward. It should move forward. And let's bring an end to this back and forth and just trying to find ways to delay it. I think it's very poor for the public to see that. And I don't think it shows good faith if, again, this gets deferred. It just means you say you want to meet, but you don't. So I just want to make that clear. That's the way I feel that this is the way it's coming across. And I'm hearing that in the public. The public eye is saying that. Why can't you just get together, have your conversation, resolve it? Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion at hand? Councillor Shea.
Just to Councillor Townsend's comments, I don't think I'm speaking out of school, Your Worship, when I say that your two representatives on that board did not support the idea of postponing this meeting. We both were in favor of the meeting continuing as per schedule. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
And if I might, through you, Mayor Robinson, does this motion have the clarity that you need to bring to the police board? Is there any, is it clear? Thank you.
It's the motion on the floor right now. So this motion will be sent to the West Grey Police Services Board. Okay. Further?
Well, my question more is it clear? Is the motion clear? Is it a message that you're able to convey clearly to the police board? Like, is there any language that we should change, or is it very clear for our members who will speak to that? Thank you.
I guess the only additional thing I can state, and I know you've re-asked the question and to try to facilitate more of an answer, and I understand the good place that you're coming from. But we have a motion that's duly moved and seconded. The mover and seconder are fine with the wording, and this motion will be conveyed to the West Grey Police Services Board. So I think at this time, it is information that will be forwarded on to the board should this be passed. So we will definitely carry the message by the two representatives. So thank you for the the inquiry. Anything further? All those in favor then? Oh, pardon me. Pardon me, I did not see you, so please go ahead.
I think Councillor Hamilton raises a good point, and I think we have to be delicate about this. And the fact that we do speak by motion and speak by resolution, I know that that is the language of council, but I do think it is worth pausing for a moment and asking how this message might be interpreted. I could imagine, and again, I have no reason or evidence to be saying this. This is just my imagination. I could imagine it being interpreted that there is no draft business plan and that none of the stakeholders, community stakeholders, are invited to review and comment on the business plan in its draft state, and that this motion is further evidence that council does not understand its role under the Police Service Act, in which it is invited to participate in the consultation part of the business plan, but not in the drafting of the business plan. So the fact that we are asking to comment on a draft business plan may be perceived by the board as overstepping our bounds, and we need to be careful. We've gotten into an awkward place here. So yeah, I don't know if there's a way to do this that is gentler or more inviting rather than asserting that we want to review and provide input, saying, you know, if possible, would you like to have our input into a draft business plan, or some version, some variation like that.
With that in mind, and I hear you, with that in mind, is there a suggestion from either the clerk or CAO in terms of the language, or how it, is there something that could be included in correspondence back to the board that would support that? Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I understand Councillor Shea and Councillor Hamilton's thought pattern that we do need to be respectful of both sides, and what is it that we actually need to be able to participate in providing input into the business plan. My understanding, and Councillor Shea, I think you validated what I was thinking, there is no draft yet. They're waiting for input from council to get to a draft. So to ask to review something, I think what we're really looking for is information on how is the service operating right now. You know, what's your typical response rate, call volumes, that sort of thing. But these two questions before us are really more, they're very open-ended, and they're an opportunity to help shape what policing would look like in West Grey. And that's all that today's conversation would have got to, which I think is a very helpful piece of the business plan. So to amend the motion with more inviting language or requesting language rather than demanding language might not be a bad idea, or maybe we're overthinking, and really the letter from the board said we'd like to come back and talk exclusively about the business plan. What is council interested in setting another meeting to do just that exercise? Madam Clerk, anything to help me out here? Thanks.
Yes, I would agree that this motion isn't going to have an action come out of it. There's no action or date or timeline. Nothing's happening with this motion, but it is rather presumptuous. If there was a draft plan, it's not council's place to review it. It's not the official plan out there for everybody to go through. And that's different than providing input by answering the questions through the consultation process entirely. So I do agree that to get to the end of the road, the goal is to provide input to the business plan for council. So perhaps council wants an opportunity to receive information or presentation from the board at the same time regarding the current activities, that would be a request. But basically the board said, we'll take your input to the business plan, but we're not meeting with you to talk about anything else unless you do the training. And again, they don't have the authority to tell council to do training. So there is a crux there, but it might be helpful just to simply direct staff to proceed with scheduling a special meeting of council to invite the police board and provide input into the business plan. And leave it at that. Otherwise, we're in the same spot where the board members perhaps will choose not to come. I don't know. Or council could say, I move that we include the following 3 items, or our top concerns about policing in West Grey are, and list them and provide that in writing to the board. There's a few options, but I'm concerned that the wording in this motion isn't strong enough to get an action happening. There's no meeting being scheduled at the end of this, right? We just leave and it's limbo. So if you want an action, let's clarify it in the motion. Or if you want to gather your thoughts and provide input into the business plan through this motion, that's an option too. It's council's wish.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I'd be willing to withdraw the motion if someone has a better idea or wants to reword it. I'm a little bit concerned that I thought today was the day that we were going to meet with the police board and have this discussion, and then it got sort of waylaid because of the training issue, and then now we're going back to the board to ask them to meet again. We haven't resolved, the training won't have happened probably before then, who knows when. So are we not sort of back in the same place? So I hope that we can have a plan a future meeting and that we can have some input. If not to have the plan in front of us, then a draft plan, then at least to have input to the plan. So look forward to that. So yeah, I'll withdraw the motion if someone would like to come up with something a little more concrete. Thank you.
So with that, Clerk Scharbeck, for the procedure, would both mover and seconder need to withdraw the motion? So Councillor Hutchinson, are you withdrawing your motion then?
Yes.
Councillor, I believe Townsend, as the seconder, are you withdrawing it? Okay, so the motion is withdrawn. Is there another motion before us? Councillor Shea.
Well, if the board was here today, we would be talking about our input to the 2 questions regarding the business plan. So maybe we should take a few minutes and come up with an answer to that question about the business plan. And I'm afraid I didn't bring my agenda printed out with me. But the questions are...
Shall I assist?
Yes, thank you.
So just to assist Councillor Shea, the questions are, what is the most important policing related issue of your organization? And question number 2 is there any other information you'd like to share with the Police Services Board? You still have the mic.
Thank you for that clarity. So the question, what is the most important policing issues for our organization? I think we could come up with a list of 5 or 6 or 10 things with 15 minutes of dialogue here right now. And maybe that would be useful to the board. And maybe it would be a gesture of goodwill and outreach for us to actually just be answering the questions that they're asking us. If people like that idea, I could start, but I'd just like to put the idea out there first.
Thank you. Let's find out. Is council wanting to do that with regard to what Councillor Shea has said? Attempt to dialogue with these answers and remember or provide answers by way of resolution if there is going to be anything brought forward to the board, or and Councillor Shea has offered to begin that dialogue, or do you want to do something else? So that is the posed question. Councillor Hamilton.
Through you, Mayor Robinson, to clarify the proposal, are you proposing that we answer the first question and send that by resolution, but we would yet still have a meeting with the police board, but they'd have that information ahead of time? And then we could move on to, they could perhaps have answers to respond to that, or we could move on to the second question, which is a more open question. But were you still picturing a meeting with the police board, or is this in replace of? Thank you.
Councillor Shea, that question is posed to you.
Thank you. I would still hope there would be a meeting. I'm not optimistic that there will be, but I'm hopeful. But I think even if we never meet with them, we still have to get on with the job of being council, and they have to get on with the job of being a board. So, they need our input into the business plan. Maybe we should try to convey as much of our feelings and thoughts about policing in that answer. Now, it's just for consideration into the business plan. It doesn't mean all of those items that we would mention necessarily go into the business plan. Not everything that the Lions Club said is going to be in the business plan. Not everything that the school board said is going to be in the business plan, but
Okay, thank you very much. And how does council wish to proceed? Is there any motion or suggestion? We've heard from Councillor Shea. I'm not seeing anybody with their hand up, even though they're pointing. Is there any inquiry from those that are on screen? And I'm not certain why Councillor Townsend is on screen when he's in the building here, when we have the other members of council on online. So I just put that to staff. So I'm not certain, is there anyone online that has an inquiry? Councillor Hutchinson.
Not so much inquiry, but I like where Councillor Shea is suggesting that we come up with some ideas, and then at least we have something to send back to say, here's some thoughts, and we would like to meet to discuss things further.
All right, is that what council wants to do?
okay.
All right, let's begin. Councillor Shea.
So I would suggest that top of my mind is I'm concerned about the expansion of the police service and the rising policing costs, and how those can be better managed. I don't want to say better managed, how those could be more, I'm being so careful here. Okay, how those could be reduced or minimized by the actions of the service, the board, and or council working in conjunction.
Any other comments? If you just want to put your comments forward, and I'll see if the other members of council have anything to add to this first question.
Well, I would also say, since the question is what's most important about policing for your organization, I would also say that as somebody who listens to the general public and collects input, that my perception is that the police are very well regarded, and that I, as a councillor, and I think most of the people that I meet in the public, are very happy with the policing that we get. And I think that should be part of the message that we're conveying back as well.
All right, then. Any other member of council wish to add to this question on 4.1? Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, so I think important policing issues are visibility, and as Councillor Shea sort of mentioned, that people do like to see the police in the area, walking the streets and whatnot. They see their cars, they see them around, they're at our festivals. So I think that's important that they're visible. I think it's also important that we keep in mind that their service is immediate, in that we have a lot of issues that happen, in particular in some of our urban centers, that the police can respond to very quickly. So I think that's important, that time of response is critical. And I think that's one issue that I have concern with if we make changes. So yeah, there's a couple.
Does any other member of council wish to add to this? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. So I would support the rising costs was my number one concern. Communication, it's kind of double-sided. I think the police force is communicating really well with the community. I'm so impressed by their social media posts and their media releases. I feel like I have a much better sense of what our police are up to in the community, the issues that they're encountering, and just how successful they're doing in the relationships that they're building. So that's positive. As a counselor, I'd like to see us building more communication. So for example, receiving annual reports earlier in the year as an example, working on the business plan earlier together as another example. So while the force is doing exceedingly well communicating to the community, there is an opportunity to communicate between council and the board more moving forward. Thanks, Mayor Robinson.
Any other member of council wish to add to this list? All right, Clerk Sharbuck, could you please read those back, and we'll see at this point if there's a mover for this, I guess, unless you could suggest something else.
Oh, okay. Through you, Mayor. This is a brief recap of points, and if I haven't interpreted it properly, we'll sort it out now before we get any motion on the floor. There's a concern about the expansion of police services and rising costs, and how these issues may be minimized by the actions of the service, the board, or in conjunction with council. Residents in West Grey have indicated that they're generally very happy with the service provided by our West Grey Police Services. Visibility of officers is very important, both foot patrol and in the vehicles. And their very quick response times, being local, is also very important and appreciated. Rising costs is the number one concern. Communication with the community by the service is excellent. However, board communication with council is a significant concern to improve upon. Just wondering if that sort of captures the gist of it, and I don't know if...
All right, so that is the recap, unless I'm hearing anything from the members of council that provided that. Is there anything additional to add to 4.1 question? So Clerk Sharbuck, I guess the best thing would be to put this in a motion, and that could be conveyed, or what would you suggest at this time?
I'd suggest that I would agree with Councillor Shea that the clearest communication from council as a whole is through a resolution. So perhaps even a resolution that the following key issues be considered as West Grey Council's input into the preparation of the West Grey Police Services business plan, and then just list them in point form.
Okay,
Would that be appropriate?
I think so, and we appreciate the suggestion. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Shea, are you moving this? Is there a seconder? Councillor Hamilton. Any questions with regard to this? Councillor Hamilton.
Is it too late to add one more concern?
No, it is not too late. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I am concerned that the business plan is late. As I understand it, I believe it's a 21 to 23 business plan. It's now mid 22. So that as a counselor, I'm concerned about that. So I'd like to include that too, please.
Okay. So as mover and seconder, I'm fine with that. And Clerk Sharbuck, could this be a recorded vote, please?
Mayor, just to clarify, Councillor Hamilton, that the business plan preparation or the timeliness of it is a concern. I'm not sure quite think I missed that a little bit.
That's okay. And maybe you can help me with the words, but my understanding, and please correct me if I don't understand this correctly. My understanding is it's a 21 to 23 business plan. We're in the middle of 22. So whatever those words would be to say, I'm concerned with the timeliness of, or having a business plan delivered in time. Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, I'll just get ready for the recorded vote. Councillor Townsend, how do you vote?
In favor?
Councillor Hamilton?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson?
Oh, not in favor.
Councillor Shea?
Yes.
Councillor Hutchinson?
In favor.
Mayor Robinson?
Not in favor.
And that motion is carried.
Okay, I believe, and I'm just looking to Clerk Sharp, I think we're on item 6 at this time for adjournment, unless there's something further from the members. I'm just looking for that. Oh, I'm sorry. I am not saying that because we haven't done 4.2. Yes, thank you. For some reason, I was jumping ahead optimistically, and I will jump back optimistically at 4.2. Is there any other information you would like to share with the Police Services Board? That is the second question that we are on at this time. Members of council, and that is Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, so one item I'd like to share is that I think going forward, if and when we build a police station, I would like to relay to the board that we should continue to look for opportunities for growth. So whether that be within our own municipality, whether that be bringing in other municipalities, or maybe even at the county level, I think there's always opportunities to grow. And I think things do change over time. So I wouldn't want us to let that go. I know we are in the process of doing the OPP costing. So that's one opportunity, I guess. But I just like it to relay to the board that we want to keep our doors open and look for opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments with regard to question number 2? Councillor Shea.
I'm sorry, but it's actually regarding question 4.1, which is finished. So I have a question for you, Your Worship. And I was surprised that you didn't vote in support of the resolution, but you will be our spokesperson at the meeting. You will be representing council's perspective to the board when this item comes up on a board agenda. And I was just curious why you didn't support it, or what, how you will be able to promote council's desire to the board.
So the resolutions of this council are the resolutions that get conveyed to whatever party, to the public. So this information will be conveyed, and that is through Code of Conduct and through the Municipal Act. So that is what is upheld completely. So we are on number 4.2. Do you have any comments with regard to that? All right. Any other member of council have questions with regard or input on 4.2? Clerk Sharvik, do you mind reading back the one input, and we'll see if there is a resolution that potentially can come out of that.
Hey, Mayor Robinson, the comment was, if we build a police station, we should continue to look for opportunities for growth. But I'm not sure if that's something that can turn into a resolution or a decision of council, really. I'm not sure how you would
I think
word
it's
that.
input. I think it's input back where the question is there any other information you'd like to share with the Police Services Board? So this is by way of input. I just want to see if there's any other member on the first term speaking. Is there any other council member that wishes to speak at this time as a first time speaker? Okay. No, go to you, Councillor Shea.
Councillor Hutchison, I wonder if the word growth might be misleading. When you first said the word, I immediately thought, oh, we're going to go from 22 officers to 30 officers. And I don't think that's what you mean. I think you mean expanding into possibly expanding into servicing other jurisdictions. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah, I was referring to maybe more expansion than growth. You're correct. Maybe growth wasn't the best word to use.
Maybe,
So,
yeah.
the opportunities for expansion, maybe put it that way, would be better.
That sounds better to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, quick, so noting. Anything further? Councillor Hamilton.
Not for the resolution, just a comment and a feeling of how uninspired I feel talking about policing without our community partners here at the table. I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling participating in this way. It's not satisfying. It's not terribly productive, I think. Just wanted to share that comment. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Councillor Townsend?
And again, to Councillor Hutchinson, I wonder if you could be clear on what you mean by expansion that could actually be put in a resolution or a statement. Again, growth, expansion, excuse me, of what?
Back to you, Councillor Hutchinson.
I guess I'm thinking of expansion, opportunities for expansion into other municipalities or jurisdictions is what I was referring to. We have had discussions with Hanover, and Southgate has showed interest in the past. Owen Sound has showed interest, but I mean, maybe there's opportunities. I'm not saying that's something that they need to do or may want to do, but I'm just throwing it out there as there may be opportunities. So expansion into other jurisdictions is, if that works.
I just wanted to try to make it as clear as possible to the people receiving the message, rather than us each interpreting it, whether it be this side, that side, whatever the case may be. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else at this time? Councillor Shea, please go ahead.
I think, Doug, that I agree that I would be open to exploring an opportunity like that if it arose, or if we could find an opportunity. I would be interested in exploring it. I'm not 100% sure that I would be interested in supporting it. So, and I'm not sure if the board or the service is interested in going down this road either. I'm just nervous that if we put this in this way, it may be interpreted that this is one of council's priorities. And I don't really feel like it's a priority for me. So I think I'm going to take a pass on this one, just to give you a heads up.
I guess, if I may, Mayor, I guess the issue we have here is that I'm speaking on my behalf rather than speaking on behalf of council, right? So, you know, it sort of becomes a brainstorming idea here. You're throwing ideas out, but not every one of them is going to stick, or not everyone can go forward. So I guess, I mean, that's the nature of a brainstorming session, is you get ideas out there and then you decide what might you want to move forward with. So I'm fine. I mean, we don't have to go forward with this. I'm just throwing out ideas. It says information you'd like to share. I mean, we're either for it, we're not for it. So yeah, no problem. But it would be nice, as Councillor Hamilton said, if we had people sitting around the table who are throwing ideas back and forth, and we come up with a plan. But we don't seem to have that opportunity right now.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anything further? There was talk about a potential meeting consideration. I'm just going to put that out there. And then there, Councillor Hutchinson, you're suggesting that you don't want to have that discussion on the topic you made, but I just want clarity on that.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't have to put that in anything going forward. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's just out there, and if the topic arises someday down the road, then that's fine. So we'll leave it out for now. Just some way of moving this thing forward is all I'm looking forward to, and hopefully we get some dialogue going forward here in the future. Thanks.
Anything further, council members? Councillor Townsend.
Yeah, I remember a presentation being done to council about the non-legislated activities. And I thought there was a list coming that I don't remember receiving in writing. But that would be worthwhile to get back to receive that, number one. And again, look at opportunities there to determine if those activities can be done in a more cost-effective way. And obviously that would be for ones where there's cost involved. Voluntary, that's different. Yeah, you possibly wouldn't change that, but again, it's worth looking at. So I'd like to see that list that was read off for quite a few minutes, verbally.
Okay, there was a presentation or some information brought forward at the chair of the West Grey Police Services Board at that time with regard to legislated and West Grey, not West Grey, but Police Services Act legislation. So I see Clerk Sharbeck just noting that for information. Anything further? Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Mayor Robinson. I'll be constructive this time. We have a community safety and well-being plan, which I don't think was in place during the last business plan of the board. So I would very much like to see how that plan is informing this new business plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? We are still on 4.2, and thank you for asking so that you can follow along for sure. Anything further to add? And then I would be looking for a motion, of course, if council would be so inclined with regard to these, because council speaks as a motion. Unless Clerk Sharbeck, you want something different to convey. If you could provide that input, it would be appreciated.
Through you, Mayor, no, I'm just not sure what the motion would be. That we're sharing the following comments for the police board's information. And then the bullet points that the list of non-legislated duties or tasks undertaken by the Police Services Board, or council requests the list of, is that?
As presented to council.
Okay.
Thank you.
And council is interested in understanding how the community safety and well-being plan contributes to the business plan or to police services. I'm not sure if I captured that properly.
Councillor?
I think that's the gist of it. How they interact, how they work together. Yeah, thank you.
Anything further? So would there be a mover for this information? Councillor Townsend, is there a seconder? Councillor Hamilton. Anybody like that reread? Okay, and a recorded vote, please. Thank you very much.
Through your Mayor. Calling the vote. Councillor Shea, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Opposed.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yes.
Councillor Hutchinson.
In favor.
Mayor Robinson,
In favor.
the motion is carried.
Thank you. Item number 5. This is police service levels. Councillor Shay.
I would like to make a motion, and I'm going to need some help with this because I'm looking for some tricky language, that conveys to the board that we don't think they should be directing council to get training before having a meeting. And furthermore, that we are still keen to meet and would like to do so at their earliest convenience. If anybody can think of a gentler way to say that, I feel like I'm dealing with an adolescent here.
No, thank you for that. And I know that Clerk Sharbeck is very good with wordsmithing, so we will just wait for her to read that back, see if you're fine with the language, and then we will then ask for a seconder on the motion. One moment, please.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Councillor Shay, I'm just thinking about this. Would West Grey Council respectfully request the Police Service Board members to attend a future special meeting of council to discuss police services in West Grey? Is that?
So not to mention.
Well, the training is council's decision, and it also depends on timing. The ministry rep is not able to schedule training basically in this term. We've touched base in between his vacation time, and he's looking at scheduling council orientation sessions and new board member sessions in after the election. So the training is very unlikely to happen in this term, to be honest. Whether council wants it or not, and it is a council decision if they want it or not. So I'm not sure if you want to relay that to the board, or just leave it as is. I'm not sure if you want to say we're not doing the training at this time, but we would like to, or we'd like to meet prior to a training opportunity, perhaps.
Some suggestions. Where would you like to go with this?
We would like meeting to not be contingent on training. I'd like to be clear that I don't think I don't mind getting training, but I don't think it should be necessarily related to this.
One moment, it'll be read back, and then you could see if you're fine with the language, and then I will go for a seconder if there is one. Thank you.
Councillor Shay, through your mayor, West Grey Council respectfully requests the Police Service Board to attend a future special meeting of council to discuss policing in West Grey, regardless of the timing of a possible council training workshop.
Councillor? Okay. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Townsend, thank you very much. All those in favor? And you know what? I'm going to do a recorded vote because I think that's really important for consistency. Clerk Sharbeck, please.
Through your mayor, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Robinson?
In favor.
Councillor Shay?
Yes.
Councillor Hutchinson?
In favor.
Councillor Townsend?
In favor.
And that's it. This motion is carried.
Thank you. At this time, we are on item number 6, which is adjournment. Clerk Sharbeck, to the recommendation at hand, please.
To you, the recommendation is that we do now adjourn at 3:17 p.m. to meet again on August 9th, 2022, or at the call of the chair.
Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Hamilton. Is there a seconder for this motion? Deputy Mayor. All those in favor indicate with a raised hand. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, one and all. Appreciate it.